Right, good afternoon all, and thank you for joining me today for a one-off presentation on three of our very newly released expedition cruise itineraries. My name is Will, and I'm a member of the Coral Expeditions sales team. Excuse me. Joining me today, I have the lovely Nicky Henderson, a member of our product and development team here at Coral, and the person actually responsible for designing the itineraries that we're going to be highlighting today. And so hopefully the perfect person to provide a bit of expert commentary on some of the main highlights across these very varied cruise destinations. Throughout the presentation, if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to pop them into the chat function on your computer. And between myself and Nicky, we'll try and answer as many as we can, time permitting, at the end of the presentation. So look, Coral Expeditions is Australia's pioneering expedition cruise operator, sailing for 40 years now. Our fleet of 3 specialised expedition ships and tenders take guests to some of the most beautiful yet undiscovered islands and coastal regions of the world. Our travellers are attracted by our relaxed small ship atmosphere and itineraries that larger ships simply cannot replicate. At a time when the cruise industry is moving to larger and larger and less personal ships, we've limited the size of our vessels to maximise the expedition experience. Our cuisine is prepared small batch on board using quality Australian produce and wine, and we operate to high Australian standards of safety with Australian crew wherever we go. We were the first to offer interpretive programs reflective of the destinations we visit and to employ expedition leaders, guest lecturers, marine biologists, and scuba instructors. And it's a tradition that continues today. For those of you who have cruised with Coral Expeditions previously, be that in the Kimberley or beyond in international waters, you'll be more than aware of the style of expedition product we offer both on board, but also whilst exploring the stunning destinations we visit. As mentioned, Coral have been in business now for 40 years, and for those 40 years, we've been taking groups of like-minded explorers to remote destinations with expert guidance and under a warm, relaxed Australian style of hospitality. For those new to Coral Expeditions, it's worth stating right away that if you're looking for that big, that classic big ship experience with multiple bars and restaurants, nightclubs, casinos, white-jacketed waiters, then the Coral Expedition product is probably not what you're looking for. Instead, we offer an informal, relaxed onboard experience with no dressing for dinner, no assigned seating, and no formal onboard entertainment outside our schedule of lectures and presentations from our guest lecturer and expedition leader team, and obviously specific to the waters in which you cruise. The whole ethos of the company is to focus on the stunning destinations we visit rather than the ship itself. And that's a very different prospect from some of the big ship cruise lines out there. We offer a minimum of 2 shore excursions daily and utilise our trademark and truly unique explorer tenders to ensure your time is maximised ashore with no waiting or queuing. And our shore excursions are also tailored to all, no matter the levels of personal fitness. And so we offer our guests anything from a strenuous walk or hike to a site of interest or viewpoint through to a gentler beachcomb or exploration of the area. In suitable locations, we also offer the choice of staying aboard our explorer tenders to cruise through the bays, creeks, rivers and coastlines for those not inclined to head ashore. The point being that we offer a range of excursion opportunities to fit all fitness requirements and specific areas of interest. And again, all shore excursions are accompanied by our expert expedition team. We do not outsource to third parties, and it means that we can guarantee the quality of the ashore and onboard expedition experience. So what is the onboard guest experience? So look, any Coral Expedition cruise offers a relaxed and informal onboard environment, and we encourage an open interaction between our guests and crew. We have an open bridge policy across the fleet, which allows regular interactions with the captain, and there's plenty of both in and outdoor areas to relax and enjoy the stunning scenery drift by, usually, I must say, with a glass of wine or a cheeky gin and tonic in hand. The onboard guest experience at its core is built around 2 main areas: the delicious culinary and wine experience, particularly relevant for these 2 domestic trips we're going to be covering shortly, and the full schedule of guest lectures and presentations from our onboard experts. The aim being that you can fully immerse yourselves in the flora, fauna, history, geology, and cultures of the places that we visit. So your cruise would be led by a dedicated expedition leader who will work closely with the captain to determine our daily programme and ensures that the best use is made of the prevailing weather and tidal conditions. Your expedition leader will join all shore excursions and activities. They'll provide daily recaps and briefings, and they're always on hand to answer any questions that you might have. The expedition team uses our ship's shallow draft, quick disembarkation capabilities, which I'll come on to shortly, our special tender equipment, such as the Explorer vessels and their kind of complementary Zodiacs, and our open deck spaces on board to take you up close and personal to the remote places that we visit. Coral, as mentioned, was one of the first cruise operators to employ interpretive guides on our cruises, and it's a tradition that continues today. So each trip, be that in the Kimberley, in domestic waters, or beyond into international, each trip will include a mix of our full-time guest lecturers who join the expedition team, and then special guest lecturers who are chosen for that specific local knowledge. And so now we move on to one of the most important facets of a coral expedition cruise, our explorer tenders. Our explorers have been purpose designed and built by Coral to provide the perfect conduit between our ships and the remote regions that we visit, be that here in the Kimberley and on all our domestic and international itineraries. And it's something that no other cruise line, domestic or international, can offer. Our explorers are really easy to board directly from the main deck with no steps or ladders to contend with before being gently lowered into the water, and they provide comfortable padded seating, a full audio system to assist our guides in sharing their expert commentary. It's got a canopy overhead which protects you from predominantly the hot tropical sun, but occasionally those thunderstorms and rainstorms. Crucial when we sail in tropical waters, and there's a toilet on board for that remote convenience. This might not sound like a big deal, but is really crucial to avoid having to constantly head back to the mothership, and potentially avoids the need to find a suitable bush or have a quick dip in the ocean. In short, our explorers are crucial in allowing us to deliver that true expedition product. They allow easy access not only to beach and harbour landings, but provide the perfect option for exploring the bays, rivers and coastlines, as well as doubling up as an excellent scuba and snorkel platform where applicable. They allow us to on and off board our entire ship's complement in under 15 minutes, which again means more time spent enjoying the areas that you paid a considerable amount of money to experience. All of our explorers are equipped with 2 powerful engines, can reach speeds of up to 25 knots, and this allows us to cover large distances in far more comfort than the Zodiacs or Tinnies, in effect, utilised by other cruise lines. But as mentioned, it would be wrong not to highlight the complementary use of our Zodiacs alongside the explorers. And it just provides that true expedition experience that you as our guests on board can decide how adventurous or not that you want to be on any given excursion. My final point on this is, if any of you have ever been on board a Zodiac, they come with far less creature comforts than our Explorer tenders. So we use them in conjunction. You can jump on board for a quick whip around the bays or coastlines or creeks, but our Explorer tenders we use as the main conduit between ship and shore. But like I say, crucial to let you guys know that we offer the full expedition experience, a full complement of Zodiacs on board, and then for the voyages that we're covering today across our 2 newer ships in the fleet, we have 2 Explorer tenders on board at each time. So moving on to the ships, so that the 3 expedition itineraries we're going to be covering today all utilise our 2 newest ships. So Coral Adventurer, you can see on the screen here, and then Coral Geographer, our newest vessel to the fleet. So Coral Adventurer launched in late 2019. Coral Geographer, here on the screen, launched in late 2021. There are 2 newest vessels in the Coral Expedition fleet. They're practically mirror images of each other. I don't have time to give too much deep information on the vessels. Please jump onto our excellent website for full ship layouts, a plethora of images and video clips, that type of thing, and peruse to your heart's content. All you really need to know is that they've been purpose built to sail in the kind of remote wilderness waters that we predominantly cruise in. They have a maximum capacity of 120 guests across 60 en-suited staterooms. Many have private balconies as well. And as you can see, there's a range of both in and outdoor deck space to soak up the beautiful views wherever we go. So moving swiftly on, we now get to introduce you to our guest speaker today, Nicky Henderson. So just briefly, Nicky has joined Coral relatively recently, but she's the kind of mastermind behind some of the itineraries that we're going to be highlighting today. So look, I really appreciate you joining us today, Nicky. Thank you very, very much. Feel free to introduce yourself and we'll rapidly move on to our first highlighted expedition itinerary today.
Thanks, Will. I just want to say welcome to everybody. It's such a pleasure to be able to spend the next, 20 or so minutes talking about some of the amazing itineraries that we have on offer coming up towards the end of 2024. I think really sort of some of the things I want to talk about today is the rationale behind the programs and really helping you to understand why the programs have been designed to where they're going and at the time of year they're going and why we've got some of the inclusions that we do have in them. So that's really what I aim for today. And as Will mentioned at the beginning of the session, please feel free to pop any questions you may have in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to address those at the end of the session.
Thank you very much, Nicky. So look, on to our inaugural itinerary that we're going to be highlighting today, the Bounty of the Southern Ocean. So 8 nights, Adelaide to Melbourne, departing early December next year aboard Coral Adventurer. So look, we invite you to join us on our inaugural Bounty of the Southern Ocean expedition, celebrating the culinary landscape of the South Australian and Victoria's pristine coastline. Along the way, you'll get to enjoy the freshest seafood, native ingredients and organic produce, accompanied by world-class wines and spirits. You'll enjoy farm-to-plate adventure as we explore these bountiful shores, and we get to discover the rich flavours of wild ocean farmed abalone on Kangaroo Island, freshly caught Australian lobster in the quaint fishing port of Robe. We get to learn about the myriad of culinary and medicinal uses of fungi and sample lots of native indigenous bush ingredients in the wild. We'll meet with passionate local producers, growers, and importantly, distillers, and even more importantly, get to share their handicraft and stories. And we'll connect with nature as you enjoy a leisurely circumnavigation around the remote seal colony of Lady Julia Percy Island and take in the spectacle of a sunset sail by the world famous 12 apostles, although I think there's 1 or 2 fewer than 12 these days. Look, our expert guides will lead the way. It's a really uniquely Australian adventurer at sea aboard Coral Adventurer. So moving on over to you, Nicky, and we'll move on to the first highlights.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Will. Look, I think for me, looking at the cultural landscape of Australia and with climate change and, post-COVID and people, changing, the way they work and what they choose to spend their time doing, I really noticed that this particular trip really caters for a lot of artisan producers who are working within the confines of their environment. So it's a real focus on some of the small, sustainable, really innovative ways of production. And I think that leads into our first location on Kangaroo Island, which is one of Australia's premier award-winning sustainable production of abalone. So they've actually got quite a large complex there, and coming into the new year of next year, they're sort of extending their reach and kindly have allowed us to come in and visit and give us a tour of the premises. There's a bit of biosecurity that goes on, so they'll be talking to us about what happens there and really the future of their business. I think that's interesting, aside from the fact that we get to taste the best abalone that Australia has, which is pretty amazing, and to know that it is on our shores, and it's all about longevity and sustainability of the abalone, and particularly you know, a lot of different processes have been tried with abalone over the years, and you know, these guys who we visit, you know, they have really done it well, and they have longevity in their processes. So I think that'll be a super interesting experience, aside from having tasting abalone. And also on Kangaroo Island, sort of in the afternoon, we'll venture up to a really gorgeous location for, you know, once again to sample a lot of the local produce from the region. So, you know, with our 8 nights, we're not able to go everywhere we want. So we bring selections to you in situ. So really, you know, we've worked with our providers there on Kangaroo Island to provide a range of sort of local wines and local produce as well, looking out over the bay, heading back towards the coast. So yeah, it's I think it's a great start of an experience for the program.
Thank you.
I mentioned, yes, robe. So, you know, I talked about seasonality before, and the time of year we're traveling is the time when we have all the seafoods coming in, and the locations that we've chosen. I mean, there's a lot of places on the coast there that actually, you know, that supply lobster, but there's a whole lot of, you know, other stories around why in Robe they have the best lobster. So there's a bit of a argy-bargy amongst the producers along that coastal region, but Robe, I've been assured, has the finest. So, you know, here we'd be looking to, you know, work with our local producers, sort of gather the catch of the morning and pair that with local prosecco in a really gorgeous location to really sample what Robe has to offer. Excuse me, beside, you know, before we sort of venture out and then have a look at that gorgeous town as well. So there's quite a bit to do at Robe, and lots to see. And also, you know, we've got, you know, talking about people who have changed their livelihoods. There's a wonderful woman called Fresh, who is one of the most passionate people you will ever hear about mushrooms. So we're going to have a bit of an onboard session to how to make tinctures and a whole range of different mushrooms you get to sample as well. I think one thing I probably haven't mentioned is that our vessel will actually be purchasing produce from the region, the greater regions that we're travelling to, and we'll be showcasing the regional produce on board. So I think that's something too. So even though we may not be having sort of a mushroom omelette when Faresh is on board, we're actually, you know, be purchasing a whole range of her mushrooms, and that'll be showcased at different stages throughout the program in the cuisine. So I think, you know, when you're eating, you know, lunches or dinners, that you'll know that the majority of the produce that you're eating comes from the area in which you're travelling.
Thank you.
Oh, so we are having an onboard signature dinner in Port MacDonald, and we'll also sort of that'll be obviously in the evening, and we have a local chef from Sidewood Wines, and he will be really having a bit of a masterclass on the local cuisine as well. So we'll be looking at some of the location we'd previously been to, and he'll be creating a menu really that showcases those ingredients with a lot of discussion and information around the food, the wine that's been chosen. So really a celebration. I think the celebration of the produce culminates in this particular evening. Yes, also, as Will mentioned, we'll be doing a little bit of a circumnavigation. I mean, that's a luxury of the vessel that we have, you know, because of its size and because its maneuverability, we are able to, you know, midway in between destinations, you know, we've timed this so we're there at, you know, hopefully at a fantastic time for us to take a, you know, a gentle sort of circumnavigation of Lady Julia Percy Island before we head on to Port Fairy. I mean, it is that flexibility that allows us to really provide experiences that other vessels may go straight past. So, yeah, so Port Campbell was absolutely fascinating area. I've been researching that quite a bit, and I don't know if anyone's been there before, but there's so many artisan producers, and I think, you know, COVID really had a major impact in this area. They're very well known for their farm gates, and a lot of farm gates went out of business, unfortunately, over COVID. So really I'm watching that space to see, you know, who's coming back, and there's quite a few providers or providors in the region who actually supply a lot of the bigger restaurants sort of in Adelaide Adelaide, Melbourne, and some of the larger cities. So I'm curating experiences with a lot of the regional farm gates to provide a hands-on and obviously a very tasty experience with a broad variety of artisan producers in the area. And of course, Sunset 12 Apostles. Gorgeous. Once again, flexibility of the vessel. We can time things so that we can, really capture the best of everything we see at the right time. Apollo Bay. This is a really great little location. So right at sort of on the foreshore at Apollo Bay there, they have an amazing, basically it's sort of like a community market in a way, as new providers, existing providers from the region, they bring their produce in and it's sold through a centralised outlet. So what we've done here is we've worked with our supplier partner and really had a look at what the seasonal produce will be at that particular time of year in December, and created a bit of a beer and tasting. So there's a beer, gin and wine tasting as well, and each of those will actually have a different set of regional pairings to go with it. So that's a choice. You get a choice there of which one you choose. So that's a really fantastic session. And of course, with all of these, we have people who are passionate providers. So they're talking about what they're doing, their stories, why they're producing, why they may have changed their their produce over time. Responding to not only sort of economic variations, but also climatic variations as well. So it's really that in some locations, some really cutting edge and innovative methods of production that we'll find out about as well. Yeah, Phillip Island. I think one thing also that I've failed to mention is that I've tried to weave the Indigenous story throughout the locations in which we visit as well. We know, and so they're quite different in the areas in which we do engage with Indigenous elders to talk about, traditional methods of food production and traditional foods that were available and are, 90% of the time still available today. But it's often those things that we don't notice, in terms of grasses, flowers, trees, berries, and a whole range of other, forest reserves that's produced from the forest, and how that is utilised in Indigenous culture in the traditional ways and also currently today. So I think here at Phillip Island, we'll be taking the trails with Indigenous guides as well through the mangroves. It's also a really important nesting site for international birds. So there's some, I can't remember, I think it's some particular tern, I can't remember off the top of my head, I'm sorry, that they will be nesting at that time of year. And so it's a really important site, not only for Indigenous as a food source, but also mangrove systems are of vital importance to Australia and to sustain all the types of food we've eaten on the journey. And there's, once again, it's Ryle, it's progressing with a great winery there. There's an amazing restaurant that we'll be going to, one of the first to actually deal predominantly in Indigenous foods. So we'll be working, with them to create a tasting menu of some of the specific foods that can be found in this particular area of Phillip Island. So I'm quite excited about this particular part of the journey as well.
Thank you very much, Nicky. I know which itinerary I'll be putting my hand up forward next time I get to jump on board. But moving swiftly on to the Whales and Trails of Western Australia, 10 nights Fremantle to Fremantle, departing in early October next year, and again aboard Coral Adventurer. So again, similar to the Bounty of the Southern Ocean, we invite you to join us on the inaugural Whales and Trails expedition as we explore the really imposing coastline of southwestern Australia with multiple adventures on land and sea. So the whole aim of this itinerary is to follow the migratory trail of the Humpback, southern right, and blue whales, which frequent this confluence of the Indian and Southern Oceans. Onshore, we'll fill our days exploring the renowned wine region of Margaret River. We'll enjoy leisurely coastal walks along some of the sections of the scenic Cape to Cape Nature Trail and discover the wildflowers that should be in full bloom during this kind of late springtime. and around the Dunsborough and Esperance region. We'll get to stroll the silica white sands in hopefully in the company of native kangaroos at Lucky Bay, recently voted #1 beach in the world, and I can speak from personal experience when I say one of the most stunning beaches I've ever had the privilege of visiting. We'll get to cruise the sheltered waters of Point Anne to witness the whales and their calves, and later get to swim with stingrays in Hamlin Bay, another epically beautiful destination on that coastline. And along the way, we get to connect with traditional owners in small coastal communities and learn of their history and heritage. And the adventure culminates with a signature winemakers dinner event at the famed Lewin Estate Winery, pairing the exceptional and one of my personal favourite art series Chardonnay, my particular go-to wines, with some local harvested cuisine. So that gives you a bit of an overview, but over to you, Nicky, to run through a couple of the highlights on this particular trip.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Look, this is also an exciting trip, yeah, and really because once again, you know, the time of year that we're travelling and you know what's happening in the region at the time really lends itself to an incredible tour. Wildflowers everywhere, and if you do intend to go on this trip, the West Australian tourism site has a wildflower app, so I recommend downloading the wildflower app so you can as you're going along you can identify all the species, have yourself a little list as you go. But as we mentioned, we're following the trail of the whale. So once again, it's a really blended trip. So what I'm trying to do here is to engage in the wildlife where we can along the journey, to make sure that we also have the opportunity to hit some of those amazing coastal stretches in really the walks. They're all graded. So we've got some for easy, some for medium, and some for a little bit more challenging. So you work with an expedition leader on the vessel and be able to accommodate all levels within this. And as we'll mention, it's because we have the explorers that we have this flexibility, you know, because along the coast you can walk for a bit, we can pull into a beach, we can pick you up. There's a lot of flexibility here. So we've got, you know, so picking up some of the amazing headlands and coastal walks. Sometimes we've got a bit of an early rise because that is the time when the sun sets at a particular location, optional, of course. And we've also got some of that fantastic food as well. We know that Margaret River is renowned for its wineries and sort of culinary produce, but there are other regions that have a very similar focus on regional produce cuisines. Denmark is one of those areas as well. So we'll do a bit of a little bit later in the tour. But Bunbury's amazing. So I've made contact with an Indigenous elder there who's lived obviously in the area for his whole life, and he's going to take us on a mangrove walk. So it's a really nice introduction to the voyage, sort of walking along the mangroves and, you know, listening to some of the stories, historical stories, traditional stories about produce that's being used. We'll also I'm just at this very moment working with a supplier to maybe offering, they have snorkeling with dolphins. So that might appear in the agenda as well. I'm just still sort of fluffing that out to see if we can add that to the program. Yeah, so Bunbury's a really nice tour. We've got about 5 hours there before we head off afterwards. And we've timed it so we've got sunset around the top of Cape Naturalist with the big lighthouse on the corner. And it's actually, there's about 3 different waters that hit at this point. So sunset is a gorgeous time to come past the coast there. So that's about 26 it'll be sunset on that day. And you can be sure that you'll be on the deck with a glass of your preferred beverage to enjoy such a spectacular view before we head off down to Hamlin Bay. And here we are, Hamlin Bay. So as you probably know, this is where the stingrays just hang out. Amazing. So aside from, you know, when we land our explorers on the beach at Hamlin Bay, you can go for a bit of a swim there if you like. And this is where we'll start our walk. So just a short stretch of the Cape to Cape walk. I've specifically chosen this particular length of the walk because of the amazing coastline and because of the very rapidly changing environment in a short distance. So there's a real range of ecosystems that you'll actually pass through on this voyage. And as I mentioned before, we've got, a couple of different pickup locations for those who may not want to walk for the duration. So we've got options there for all different types of walkers as well. And once again, if you've got your wildflower app, I think it could take you a lot longer. It would take me a long time. So I've spent so much time taking pictures of the wildflowers. But yeah, it'll be an amazing part to the walk. It could be a bit blustery, the weather at that time of the year, and we are coastal walking. So, you make sure that you've got all the recommended attire, some walking sticks as well. I think they're pretty handy. And it should be a beautiful part of the morning. Denmark. Now, as I mentioned before, Denmark, perhaps not in the marketing, but it can certainly rival Market River for the range of produce and small artisans that exist in the area and are continuing to build in the area. So here we'll head off to Duckett's, and we'll have a bit of a wine tasting, the cheese tasting, a couple of platters. Once again, we're working with the suppliers to bring in some of the charcuterie from the surrounding areas and surrounding providors, and they all often exist on a small scale, and it's something that you're not getting in your regular supermarket, maybe an IGA in some locations, but you're not getting access to these produce. So it's a real opportunity to discover a whole new brand of small favourites that you can support in Australia. Yeah, so Point Anne. So at this particular time of year, the whales calve in an area in Point Anne. So our team are very experienced. If anyone's been on one of our Kimberley trips, even at this time of year, there's whales everywhere. So our team and our masters are very experienced at working and moving around animals in the sea. So hopefully we'll get to see some whales calving at that point. Ravensthorpe as well. Really, I love the story of Ravensthorpe. So about 15 years ago, they were sort of a town in the middle of nowhere, and then the community decided that they were going to create art. So basically, there's an incredible art trail, farm gate trail, that we can wander around, and speaking with some of the owners and the original conceivers of the program, and how that has transformed the economic capacity of the village, of the community, and to bring tourism back into it. So you can see there's been a massive change in the community and retention of youth as it goes on by, an apparently simple initiative to create some art. So, some of the farmers out there, very creative, very imaginative. So I think for me, it's a fantastic story of the region, as well as, us showing our support for some of the quirkier aspects of Australian culture. And I'm really looking forward to engaging with, some of the locals in the area to talk about their pieces of art and their stories as well. Esperance. Okay, so here we've got a bit of a walk. Once again, some beautiful walkways in the morning, following the coast around. They're all tarred in this particular area. Really easily accessible. And once again, we have different pickup locations for different parts of the walk. And we'll be heading over. I don't know if you've got you probably do have a Lucky Bay slide there as well. But here again, we'll be engaging with that's in Albany, sorry. Yeah, so yep, that's it for Esperance. Have you got one for okay, so well, after Esperance, we'll actually be going to Lucky Bay, which we all mentioned before, which is voted, it's got a few awards actually. #1 beach in the world just recently, the widest sand in the world. Well, we're happy. It's a gorgeous beach. So we'll go and have a bit of a swim around there as well. And once again, we take the explorers around and land on the beach and just have a gorgeous afternoon there. And Albany. So Albany here also, the headland at Albany has a really interesting story, not only for our Indigenous elders and Indigenous traditional history, but also from a colonial point of view as well. So it has had many different lives the actual headland there. So we'll take a walk with an Indigenous guide to talk about their experience, traditional stories on the headland, with a lot of local foods as well, to talk about, you know, what was popular and seasonal in the area, but to also talk about, you know, some of the changes that have occurred. I mean, now it's a school camping area, sort of in parts of this particular headland as well. So it continues to evolve. So that's a really gorgeous walk through there as well. And we'll do probably a bit of a on-board presentation, maybe a bit of a cooking demonstration as well. So sometimes I think when we're at sea and we're travelling to different locations, you know, we've got experts on the vessel. So as we'll mention, we'll be doing, you know, some lectures, we'll be doing some workshops, some cooking demonstrations, and a whole range of other sort of little workshops as we move forward. So Augusta, so here we go, whale watching. We've got some whales jumping out at that time of the morning, probably quite early in the morning. Then we'll head to we'll stay around that Flinders Bay area, which we know is popular at that time of year with the whales. Before we head over to Flinders Bay Reserve, where I've worked with our local suppliers there to have a whole lot of oysters brought, and we'll basically have a big picnic in the under the shades of the massive pine trees there. Once again, having some prosecco and some delicious oysters on board, and you'll probably see whales from standing there as well, because it's right in front of the shore. So we actually get a seaside and a landside perspective on the same location, which would be quite interesting then. Yes, and here we are at Lewin Estate for a fantastic bespoke dinner. So it's an exclusive event for coral expeditions at Lewin Estate. So I'm presently working with the team there, putting a whole lot of arrangements together. We have had a dinner there before, and by all accounts, we actually had some of our staff on board a couple of years ago, I think it was, and they just rave about it. So I know it's an exceptional experience once again to dine at Lewin, aside from the art series wines. Will.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, and also in Dunsborough, sort of that's the evening. Then the next morning, we'll go on a bit of a coastal foraging experience, just to, you know, a bit of a sort of a beach comb through the coast in the morning, because it's actually in this area, which is where we land the explorers. So this is the beach, pretty much very similar to what we'll be landing on, and then we'll head out to the Ambergate Reserve, which is quite close, just for a really nice walk. Once again, it'll be the last opportunity to load some more wildflower pictures into your wildflower app, or take a few sketches before we head back in the evening, and sort of do a bit of a photo share, I'd imagine, you know, photo share of all the amazing experiences on board before we head back to Fremantle.
Cool. Thank you very much once again, Nikki. And then on to our final highlighted itinerary today. And as you can see, it's going to be a very, very different prospect from the previous two. So we've got a full circumnavigation of Sumatra. It's part of our circumnavigation series, basically, and we do the same in New Guinea. We've got a full circumnavigation of Sulawesi. Again, please refer to our website for any additional details on those. But circumnavigation of Sumatra, 18 nights, Singapore to Singapore, departing in late November next year aboard our newest vessel, Coral Geographer. So like with the previous two, we invite you to join us on the inaugural circumnavigation of Sumatra, as stated, aboard Coral Geographer, and we delve deeply into the kind of biological and cultural diversity that forms the fabric of Indonesia's largest island. You'll get to explore hard to reach small fringing islands, follow historical trading routes and the trails of early explorers. You'll meander along the coastal ecosystems and into the labyrinth of islands of the Western Indonesian maritime border. We'll join local rangers for guided walks and tours through the Ujung Kulon and Tambelang National Parks. as we engage with the researchers and learn about the Javanese rhinos and the subspecies of the really endangered Sumatran tiger, not found anywhere else in the world. We'll engage in a community initiative providing employment opportunities for the local villages in very remote North Near Island, and enjoy sunset drinks at 0 degrees latitude, and cross the Sunda Straits to discover the volcanic history of Krakatoa. We'll have a traditional BCAT ride through the old towns of Medan, and hopefully deepen your understanding of the devastating 2004 tsunami which hit the province of Aceh. This expedition offers hopefully an unforgettable adventure, uncovering and connecting you with the ethnic mosaic, I suppose, that is modern day Indonesia. So look, just a few highlights of that. Over to you, Nicky, and then we'll have a few questions.
Trip to write. I used to live in Indonesia, so I'm sort of a little bit biased. I always love writing about Indonesia, and to do a circumnavigation of Sumatra is so fascinating because it still is very rich and very diverse in its ethnicities. And you know, the Western Islands allows us really, as we travel up the coast, every island has a different set of beliefs, systems, rituals, cultures. It's absolutely fascinating. And so, as you can see, we sort of weave into the mainland and out to the islands all the way along. You know, so we start here in Belitung at Tinggi Beach. So you know, we'll have some, you know, immigration clearances and things like that. And really, this is a gorgeous little beach where you can sort of stretch your legs, go out on a bit of a walk. We'll more than likely we'll have a group of dancers to welcome us. We love being welcomed, and really it is just you know, about, you know, sort of meandering in that area. We've only got a couple of hours there before we head off. Ujung Kulon, yeah, so as we mentioned, this is one of the last locations. It's right at the tip of Java where the rhinoceros can be found. Now, you know, animals, they're smart, they've been around for a long time, so we'll take local guides with us, and we'll spend the day basically looking around and walking through quite a few different tracks. Once again, cater to a range of fitness levels and mobilities. There's also some swimming that, you know, in the region. There's some flat grassland areas where there's endemic deer as well. There's a bit more sort of more exhaustive hikes into different regions, but essentially really we'll be really looking at the thick jungle, the rich bird life, rich animal life, and hopefully we might be able to spot a few footprints, if not the rhinoceros itself. Wildlife nature conservation, and this is a fascinating place as well. It's pretty much only accessible by boat. It's been around for a long time, and it's one of the first locations in Indonesia to actually try to offer some conservation to the animals. I mean, there's always the difficulty between you know, land and human populations. They're always in traction, really. So we'll get to meet the scientists there and talk about, you know, what they're trying to do. They're well renowned internationally for what they do. They work with other animals as well, endangered animals in the location. And one of the things that really has been a linchpin in their success is the way they work with local communities. So really engaging communities in the running and the conservation effort of the animals keeps people out of the forest and keeps from poaching. So really creating different methods of income on the back of the conservation centre to fulfil that conservation. So we've got a couple of opportunities there to you know, to see quite a few different animals, but I think the main thing is just really you know, understanding the aims and of the conservation centre. And they have jeeps that we get to drive around in as well, so they're quite interesting to go and further explore into the broader conservation area itself. These gorgeous beaches and islands all the way up the coast. So essentially in all of these particular island locations, it'll be a blend of swimming, snorkeling, beach combing, hanging on the beach, and remote village visits. So as I mentioned, each of the islands along the way have a different culture and a different expression of that culture. So what I've tried to do is really engage with the expression of the culture, whether it's in in song or in dance or through their food. Or through their creations. I've tried to take the essence of each of the islands and basically work with the local villagers to present and to engage you in the experience and their particular culture. So Engano is just one of those islands in which this is how we'll navigate these remote areas. And Dua Island is a spectacular little island where we'll be having sunset drinks. It's gorgeous. Yeah, North Nias. So we'll head to both North and Southern Nias. So Southern Nias is probably the more renowned, with Australian surfers sort of heading over there for a long time, and also where they have probably the megalithic culture. You'll see a lot of the images of the stone jumping and quite intact villages. So we'll be visiting there, but also in Northern Nias, which is the less visited part of the island, we get to engage with one who I guess originally it was a surf camp. And then basically the owners have worked with community and set up community projects. This one we'll look at is sort of surrounding coconuts and coconut production and all of the myriad of uses of coconuts, and just really how that's sustained. You can imagine an island life and trying to keep the youth on the island and keep that culture evolving. So, there's a lot of innovation, trying to occur on a lot of these islands to retain through economic means, retain their culture. So, yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. Medan, we'll be stopping there. It's a beautiful city, Medan. It's a little bit crazy, a bit noisy. As Will mentioned, we'll go on a traditional becak ride through the old part of the city. There's some amazing architecture, in central Medan, Art Deco architecture as it moves through, its range of colonisers. We've got the Dutch, we've got the English, we have various different cultures within Medan as well. So we'll really go on and explore the architecture and the influences that have shaped the city of Medan.
Thank you very, very much, Nicky, just for providing those, just a relatively brief overview of 3 really newly released itineraries. As I mentioned, I try and keep these kind of webinar presentations to around the 45-minute mark. I'm pretty close to going over that now. We've got 2 more itineraries, which we're not going to cover today. I just wanted to flag that if you enjoyed or piqued your interest with the Sumatra circumnavigation, we've got 2 very, very kind of complementary itineraries departing next year. So we've got an equatorial adventure across North Borneo, 16 nights Manila to Singapore. And then we've also got if my computer moves on, and into the wilds of Borneo, so 16 nights Singapore to Makassar. I'm only flagging that now because we've got a webinar specifically built around these 2 departures coming up in the next kind of few weeks or so. So Friday the 13th, I apologise for that one, but Friday the 13th of October, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Australian Standard Time as per normal. If those 2 itineraries are of interest to you, please feel free to register for a webinar, and we look forward to seeing you join us there. So moving on to a few of the questions. So throughout the presentation, I've had a few questions pop through from the chat function, some of which we tend to get asked, usually every single time. And the leading one is Wi-Fi. What is the internet connections like on board a Coral Expeditions vessel? If you'd asked me even 6 months or so ago, I would say pretty terrible, to be honest with you. But not that Elon Musk needs the money, but Coral Expeditions has spent a small fortune installing Starlink Wi-Fi technology across the fleet. From what I've heard from some of my onboard colleagues, it's now a better speed than our head office Cairns location. We provide you, as included in the existing fare that you've paid, access to what we call our standard Wi-Fi. This is now more than good enough for you to keep in contact with friends and family, to upload photos and share photos on social media. If you're one of those very unlucky people that have to take an important work call, or God forbid, you want to be downloading and streaming Netflix movies, and I assure you, you won't have the time to do that. You might want to upgrade to our premium service, basically. Okay, and that gives you, unlimited Wi-Fi to download movies, stream to your heart's content. That comes at an additional cost, but the standard Wi-Fi that comes included is, for the majority of our guests on board, more than enough to handle your kind of day-to-day requirements. So moving on, laundry. Do you offer laundry facilities? The short answer is absolutely we do. It is, again, comes at a small additional cost, but we have full laundry facilities on board. And that kind of harks back to, or segues quite nicely into another question that got submitted, is luggage restrictions, and do you have them? Again, the short answer is no, we don't. When I've been witnessing guests boarding and departing our cruises, I've seen some people turn up with, very small overnight bags for a 10, 14 night trip, something like that. But I've also seen couples turn up with, more than 7 or 8 suitcases. So, somewhere probably in the middle. I mentioned earlier on in the presentation, we offer a laid back, informal, while still very, very premium onboard experience, but we don't expect you to dress for dinner. So look, unless you want to, you don't need to bring your DJs, you don't need to bring your ball gowns or anything like that. But yeah, the short answer is, look, within reason, no luggage restrictions whatsoever on board. Moving on. So yeah, we get asked this quite frequently, actually. Look, how fit do you need to be, and do I need any special equipment? So both me and Nicky kind of, I think, have touched on the kind of shore excursions we offer. And rest assured that we will offer an option on any of our shore excursions that cater to all levels of fitness. So as I think Nicky mentioned, if we've got an excursion that's kind of focused on a particular a walk or exploration of the area, we'll divide up into people that push themselves a little bit to walk up to the top of the cliff or top of the headland to up to a lighthouse or viewpoint. But we'll also offer the more gentler options, a gentle beach comb, an exploration of the area aboard the Explorer tenders. Or, like I say, all of our excursions are completely not obligatory. You're welcome to stay on board and just nurse that gin and tonic and watch the world drift by. All you really need to take from that is that, like I say, we provide a range of options to suit all interests and kind of fitness levels. And then that segues into, do I need any kind of special gear, any special clothing? So Nicky touched on it earlier. I know that a lot of our guests like to use walking poles, and that's totally up to you. With the footwear, we have a mixture of what we call wet and dry landings, and that's not just on these itineraries, but that's across from the Kimberley to Tasmania and beyond. So in brief, a wet landing is where we use our Explorer tenders. We're going to a very remote beach or area. There's no harbour facilities, and so we just have a drop down ramp, like a kind of military landing craft, I suppose, which allows you to walk off the front of the Explorers. And usually into, very shallow, ankle deep water. We're not going to get you to wade, waist deep in murky waters to a muddy beach or anything like that. But we will call that a wet landing, where you're going to get your feet wet. So a perfect, I call them flip flops, but a pair of thongs, a pair of those plastic Crocs, or just bare feet, but a pair of shoes that you can get wet, basically. And then a dry landing is exactly what it says on the tin. It's when we can pull up to a rock platform to a more formal harbour, where we can get you off the Explorers onto land without getting your feet wet, basically. So just in short, you'll need a pair of shoes similar to hiking boots or sports shoes that you can cover a decent walk in, depending on your particular requirements, and then a pair of shoes that you can utilize on the beach, be they thongs, flip-flops, or those kind of Croc shoes as well. In terms of any other gear, it's really personal preference. Obviously, we all know that you know the weather can be inclement at times. We do cruise to these destinations or plan our itineraries around you know the peak time of year to be there weather-wise. But as you know, you can get wind, you can get rain, you can get driving, you know, hail and tropical sunshine, you know, pretty much all in the same day. So please dress accordingly. No luggage restrictions. So bring what you need to get the most out of these kind of expedition itineraries. I think moving swiftly on, because I know I've gone way over time, guys. The last question that's popped through, what are the single traveller options? So rather than going into too much detail, we obviously actively welcome single travellers on board any of our expedition cruise itineraries and have you know cabins allocated across all of the coral fleet. I would point you in the direction of our website actually, and we've got a specific single traveller section where we can either we offer you a multitude of options from paying a single supplement, which you know no one likes doing, and we offer you options of avoiding that, whether or not we can pair you up with you know another single of the same sex, or we'll introduce you to our single traveller Facebook group, and there you can reach out to whoever is online, you know, discuss upcoming voyages and work out yourself if that person is someone that you would you know look to travel with and avoid the relative pain of paying those single supplement fees. Unless there's no more questions, and I think that's all that has popped through from this presentation so far. And I've gone well over the 45 minutes at 55 minutes now. So we will wrap it up now, guys. Thank you very much for joining us today. Any further questions you've got, please reach out to the 1-800 number or the Explore email address. That takes you straight up to Nicky and the rest of our, or not the rest of our, but the sales and reservation team based up in Cairns. They're going to be more than happy to assist with any questions you may have. Or again, please reach out to your travel agent as required. We've been working with the trade for close to 40 years now, and we are more than happy to answer their queries on your behalf. Thank you very much, Nicky. I really appreciate you giving us your time. I know it's a busy time of year and you've got lots of itineraries to plan and prepare for. And that's the last point I really make is that you know the success of coral expeditions over 40 years you know comes down to multiple departments, from obviously the onboard team, but our product team, you know, all 5 or 6 of them based up in the Cairns head office. You know, they jump on planes and go and explore these areas before we'd even think about sending guests there. So you can rest assured that you know any of our trips and even these inaugural expeditions are superbly planned and excellently executed, and you'll have you know a fantastic true expedition itinerary no matter which of the 3 highlighted trips you choose today. Thank you again, Nicky, really appreciate it. Thank you to all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on board soon. Have a good day.